The morning sun was bright over New Sol Colony when the ships came. Hana was picking tomatoes in her family's garden, her small hands careful not to bruise the red fruit. She hummed a song her mother taught her, the same one her grandmother used to sing back on Earth. The shadow fell across the garden first. Then came the sound, a deep humming that made the ground shake under her feet. Hana looked up and saw them. 3 massive ships, black as space itself, blocking out the sun. They were bigger than mountains, with strange symbols glowing along their sides. "Daddy!" Hana called out, dropping her basket. The tomatoes rolled across the dirt as she ran toward the house. "Daddy, there are big ships!" Junho came running from the barn, his face white with fear. He had heard about these ships before. Every farmer in the outer colonies had heard the stories. The Valdorian Empire had come to collect their taxes. "Hana, get inside," Junho said, his voice shaking. "Find your mother. Hide in the basement." But it was too late. Beams of light shot down from the ships, and soldiers appeared in the yard. They were tall and thin, with forearms and skin like gray stone. Their eyes glowed red in faces that looked like skulls. These were Valdorians, rulers of 800 worlds across the galaxy. The leader stepped forward. His uniform was covered in gold marks that showed his rank. "Human Junho Kim," he said in a voice like grinding metal. "You owe the Empire 90% of your crop yield. Payment is due today." Junho stood in front of his daughter, trying to protect her. "Please," he said. "We gave you everything we could spare. If we give more, my family will starve this winter." "Doichu," Valdorian leader made a sound like laughing, but it was cold and cruel. "Your family's hunger is not the Empire's concern. You will give what is owed, or face punishment." "I can't," Junho said. "I won't let my child starve." The soldiers moved, faster than humans could see. Before Junho could react, they had Hana. She screamed and reached for her father, but energy chains held her tight. The chains glowed blue and felt like ice against her skin. "Daddy, help me," Hana cried in Korean, the words her parents taught her for when she was scared. Junho tried to run to her, but more energy chains wrapped around him. He fell to his knees in the dirt, still reaching for his daughter. "Take me instead," he begged. "She's just a child. She's done nothing wrong." The Valdorian leader looked down at him with those burning red eyes. "The child will serve as an example. The Empire is tired of rebellious colonies thinking they can keep what belongs to us." Hana's mother, Sujin, came running from the house. She saw her daughter in chains and screamed. The sound was so full of pain that even some of the Valdorian soldiers stepped back. But their leader just smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. "Perfect," he said. "The whole family is here to say goodbye." The soldiers dragged Hana toward the ships. She fought as hard as she could, but she was only 12 years old and the chains were too strong. Her parents tried to follow, but more soldiers held them back. "This colony has failed to meet its obligations for 3 seasons, the leader announced, his voice now loud enough for everyone in the settlement to hear. "The Empire shows mercy by taking only 1 child instead of burning your entire world." Other families came out of their houses. They had heard Hana's screams and came to see what was happening. Children hid behind their parents' legs. Adults stood in shocked silence. Everyone knew what this meant. The Valdorian leader raised one of his 4 arms and a device appeared in his hand. It began to glow and suddenly the air filled with light. "Citizens of the Empire," his voice boomed across space itself. "Today you witness imperial justice." Across 800 worlds, billions of beings stopped what they were doing. The broadcast had begun. On planets covered in crystal cities, in space stations orbiting dying stars, in the great capital ships of the Imperial fleet, everyone could see what was happening on New Sol Colony. They saw a small human girl with tears on her face held in chains that sparked with energy. They saw her parents being held back by soldiers as they tried to reach her. They saw the leader of the Valdorian forces standing over them all, like death itself. "This human child," the leader said to the galaxy, "represents the rebellion growing in the outer colonies. Her father chose to defy imperial law. Her family chose to keep food that belongs to the Empire." Hana looked around at all the cameras floating in the air. She didn't understand why so many people were watching. She just wanted her mother and father. She wanted to go back to picking tomatoes in the garden. The Empire is merciful, the leader continued. We offer this child a chance to confess her family's crimes. She has 26 minutes to beg for forgiveness. If she does not, she will pay the price for her father's rebellion. A timer appeared in the air above Hannah's head. The numbers glowed red, 26-0. Then they began to count down. 25-159, 25-158, 25-157. Please, Hannah said in her small voice, speaking in Korean because she was too scared to remember the imperial language. I want to go home. I want my mommy. The leader laughed again. See how these primitives babble in their crude tongues? This is what happens when lesser species forget their place in the Empire's order. Across the galaxy, beings watched and waited. Some felt pity for the small human child. Others felt nothing at all. Most simply accepted that this was how the Empire worked. The strong ruled the weak. The Empire decided who lived and who died. But 26 light-years away, on a small blue planet called Earth, something was about to wake up, something that had been sleeping for a very long time. The timer kept counting down. 25-23, 25-22, 25-21, and in a small monitoring station in Seoul, a man named Minho was about to see something that would change everything. Minho was drinking his third cup of coffee when the signal came through. He worked the night shift at the Seoul Space Monitoring Station, a job that was usually boring. Most nights he just watched empty space and listened to radio signals from distant stars. But tonight was different. The signal was strong, much stronger than anything they normally picked up. Minho adjusted his equipment and suddenly the main screen filled with light. At first he thought it was some kind of transmission. Error. The image was too clear, too detailed to be coming from so far away. Then he saw her. A little girl, maybe 12 years old, sitting in what looked like a cage made of blue energy. She had black hair and dark eyes, and she was crying. Around her stood tall gray creatures with forearms and faces like skulls. One of them was talking, but Minho couldn't understand the language at first. His computer began translating automatically. The words appeared at the bottom of the screen, and what Minho read made his blood turn to ice. This human child represents the rebellion growing in the outer colonies. Minho dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't notice. His hands were shaking as he reached for the emergency phone. This was a human child, a Korean child, from the sound of her crying. She was calling for her parents in Korean, the same language his own daughter spoke. Dr. Yoonji, he said when the phone connected. You need to see this right now. Dr. Yoonji arrived at the monitoring station in 15 minutes. She was the head of Earth's Xenological Defense Department, a small government office that most people didn't even know existed. She took one look at the screen and her face went pale. How long has this been broadcasting? She asked. 3 minutes, Minho said. The timer shows 23 minutes left. Dr. Yoonji watched the screen for a moment, seeing the little girl's tears, hearing her call for her mother. Then she picked up a special phone, one with a red button that had never been pressed before. Authorization code Alpha 77, she said into the phone. This is Dr. Yoonji Park. I am declaring a Code Black event. Repeat, Code Black. Across Earth, phones began ringing. In military bases hidden deep underground, lights started flashing red. In secret facilities that didn't appear on any official maps, people began running. Captain Hyun was sleeping in his quarters on the Earth Defense Station when his emergency communicator went off. The sound was like a scream in the dark, designed to wake him instantly. He had been waiting for this call for 20 years, hoping it would never come. He was dressed and running toward the command center in 30 seconds. Sir, his communications officer said as soon as he arrived, we have a Code Black. Human child taken prisoner by the Valdorian Empire. Public execution scheduled in 22 minutes. Captain Hyun looked at the main screen and saw what Minho had seen. The little girl in the energy cage crying for her parents while aliens laughed at her pain. He had seen many terrible things in his career, but this made him feel something he had never felt before. Pure, burning rage. Send the activation codes, he said, his voice steady despite the fire in his chest. All of them. In Busan, So-young was in her apartment working on her computer late into the night. She was one of Earth's best hackers, though the government pretended not to know about her illegal activities. When her screen suddenly went black and a message appeared, she knew her life had just changed forever. Code Black activated. Report. For duty immediately. So-young had been waiting for this message since she was 16 years old. The government had found her after she hacked into their defense systems as a dare. Instead of arresting her, they made her an offer. Help them prepare for the day humanity might need to defend itself against alien threats. She grabbed her gear and ran for the door. In a weapons facility hidden beneath the mountains outside Seoul, Taejin received the same message. He had been working on special projects for 15 years, building things that were supposed to never be used. Weapons designed not just to destroy, but to send a message that would echo across the galaxy. Finally, he whispered, and began entering activation codes. Across Earth, the awakening continued. In Tokyo, a team of scientists began powering up engines that could bend space itself. In London, military officers opened sealed orders they had carried for decades. In New York, diplomats who were secretly trained killers put down their pens and picked up weapons. But it wasn't just on Earth. Throughout the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, humans who had lived quiet lives as traders, teachers and travelers received the same message. They had been waiting, some for their entire lives, for this moment. On the trading station above Centauri Prime, a man named Do-hyun had spent 10 years selling farming equipment to alien colonies. When his communicator buzzed, he smiled and walked to a storage room that contained much more than farming tools. On the diplomatic ship near the Vega system, a woman named Nari had been negotiating trade agreements for 7 years. She excused herself from a meeting with alien ambassadors, went to her quarters and opened a case that held enough explosives to crack a moon. In the capital city of Valdoria itself, a human named Ju Huan, who worked as a janitor in the Imperial Palace, received his message and walked calmly toward the Emperor's throne room. He had been mopping those floors for 12 years, waiting for this day. Back on Earth, Dr. Yoonji watched the timer count down. 1947, 1946, 1945. How many assets do we have in position? She asked. All of them, Captain Hyon replied through the communication system. Every single one. We've been preparing for this for 40 years. Dr. Yoonji nodded. 40 years ago, when Earth first made contact with alien civilizations, some people had been excited about joining a galactic community. Others had been worried about what might happen if humanity ever needed to defend itself. Those worried people had made preparations. Send the message, Dr. Yoonji ordered, across all frequencies in every language spoken in the galaxy. The same message began broadcasting. To the Valdorian Empire, you have 18 minutes to release the human child. This is your only warning. On New Sol Colony, the Valdorian leader received the message and laughed. Listen, he announced to his soldiers. The primitive humans think they can threaten the Empire. He was still laughing when every piece of technology in the colony suddenly stopped working. The timer above Hana's head flickered and went dark. Then the real show began. Captain Hyon stood in the command center of the Earth Defense Station, watching as his screen filled with ship signatures. For 40 years, the galaxy had believed Earth's space fleet consisted of 12 small exploration vessels. They were wrong. All ships report ready, sir, his communications officer announced. How many? Captain Hyon asked, though he already knew the answer. 847, sir. One for each system in the Valdorian Empire. Captain Hyon smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator that had been waiting patiently for the perfect moment to strike. The ships had been hidden in plain sight, disguised as mining stations, research facilities, and cargo haulers scattered throughout the solar system. Each one looked harmless from the outside, just another piece of human space infrastructure. But inside, they were something else entirely. Begin deployment, Captain Hyon ordered. The ships moved like ghosts through space. Their stealth technology didn't just make them invisible to sensors, it allowed them to slip between dimensions, traveling through spaces that existed alongside normal reality, but couldn't be detected by conventional means. To outside observers, it looked like empty space, but Earth's fleet was moving through that emptiness, heading toward 847 different targets across the galaxy. Dr. Yunji watched the deployment from her command center in Seoul. Each ship appeared as a green dot on her tactical display, moving toward its assigned destination. But the ships were only part of the plan. "So-young, report," she said into her headset. In her high-tech bunker in Busan, So-young was surrounded by screens showing data streams from across the galaxy. Her fingers moved across her keyboards like a pianist playing a deadly song. "I'm inside their communication network," she reported. "The Valdorians use quantum encryption, but they've been using the same basic code for 300 years. I've been studying it since I was 17. Dr. Yunji had recruited So-young when the girl was just 16, after she hacked into Earth's defense systems on a dare. Instead of punishing her, they had trained her for this exact moment. "What's your status on their ship systems?" Dr. Yunji asked. "Give me 12 more minutes," So-young said. "I'll have access to everything: navigation, weapons, life support, door locks. When I'm done, the Valdorian Empire won't be able to operate a coffee machine without my permission." Across the galaxy, other preparations were falling into place. On the trading station above Centauri Prime, Do-hyun had opened his storage room and removed what looked like farming equipment. But when he pressed certain buttons in the right sequence, the seed planters became pulse cannons, the irrigation pumps became shield generators, and the crop analyzers became quantum computers capable of hacking any system within 1,000 light-years. He had sold similar farming equipment to colonies throughout Valdorian space over the past 10 years, equipment that was now activating on hundreds of worlds, ready to turn the Empire's own infrastructure against them. On the diplomatic ship near Vega, Nari was no longer pretending to be interested in trade agreements. The explosives, in her case, were not designed to destroy. They were designed to disable. Each device was precisely calibrated to shut down specific types of alien technology without harming the people using them. She had been planting these devices in strategic locations for 7 years, always with a smile, always as part of routine diplomatic visits. The Valdorians had welcomed her into their most secure facilities, never suspecting that the quiet human diplomat was actually one of Earth's most dangerous operatives. In the Imperial Palace on Valdoria Prime, Ju-wan continued mopping floors, as he had for 12 years. But today he was mopping his way toward the main computer core, where he would plant a virus that had taken Earth's best programmers decades to develop. The virus was beautiful in its simplicity. It wouldn't destroy the Empire's data. It would simply give control of every computer system to a certain hacker in Busan who was very angry about what she had seen on the news. Back on Earth, Taejin was in his mountain facility bringing online weapons that existed in no official military manual. These were devices built by humans who understood that sometimes the most effective weapon is not the one that kills, but the one that shows your enemy exactly how much you could kill if you chose to. One weapon could disable every piece of technology on a planet without harming a single living being. Another could make every star in a solar system flicker in perfect synchronization, just to prove it could be done. A third could project messages directly into the minds of anyone within 50 light-years in their own language, with their own voice. "All systems ready," Taejin reported to Dr. Yunji. "We can shut down the entire Valdorian Empire with the push of a button." Dr. Yunja looked at the timer on her screen. 12:33, 12:32, 12:31. "Not yet," she said. "Let them think they're winning a little longer." On New Sol Colony, the Valdorian leader was getting frustrated. The colony's technology had shut down, but that was just a minor inconvenience. He had his own equipment, and the broadcast was still going out across the galaxy. 11 minutes remaining, he announced to the cameras. "This human child has said nothing. She has not begged for mercy. Perhaps her species is too primitive to understand the concept of confession." Hana sat in her energy cage, no longer crying. She had heard something in the air around her, like whispers in a language she almost understood. The whispers told her that help was coming. They told her to be brave just a little longer. She looked up at the Valdorian leader with eyes that were no longer filled with fear, but with something else. Something that made the alien commander step back despite himself. "My daddy says," Hana said in careful Imperial standard, "that bullies are just scared people who hurt others to feel strong." The Valdorian leader snarled, showing his sharp teeth. "Your daddy is about to learn what happens to those who defy the Empire." But even as he said it, he felt something change in the air around him. His sensors were showing impossible readings. His communications officer was reporting system failures across the fleet. His own ship's computer was displaying error messages in a language he didn't recognize, a language that looked like Korean. Captain Hyon's voice suddenly filled the air, speaking from invisible ships that surrounded New Sol Colony. "Valdorian, Commander," he said, his voice calm and pleasant. "You have 10 minutes to release the child and surrender. After that, your empire stops existing." The Valdorian leader looked around at empty sky, seeing nothing but feeling the presence of ships he couldn't detect. "Impossible," he whispered. "Sir," his communications officer called out, panic in his voice. "I'm receiving reports from across the Empire. Every system, every world, every ship, they're all experiencing simultaneous equipment failures." The leader's four hands began to shake. "What kind of equipment failures?" "Everything, sir. Navigation, weapons, life support, communications. It's like someone just turned off the entire Empire." High above them, invisible in dimensions beyond normal space, Captain Hyon's fleet waited for orders. Across the galaxy, 847 ships moved into position around 847 worlds. And on 847 worlds, humans who had lived quiet lives as farmers, traders, teachers, and janitors prepared to show the galaxy what happened when someone hurt their children. The timer read, 09:45, 09:44, 09:43. The Valdorian Empire had 9 minutes left. Emperor Vextar sat on his crystal throne in the heart of the Imperial Palace, watching the broadcast from New Sol Colony with amusement. Around him, his advisors and generals waited for his orders, all of them confident that this display of imperial power would end any thoughts of rebellion in the outer colonies. "These humans," the Emperor said, his forearms gesturing dismissively, "they think they can threaten us with empty words. Show me what their pathetic fleet can do against the might of our empire." His chief military advisor, General Korth, stepped forward. "My lord, we have received some disturbing reports. Our systems across multiple worlds are experiencing technical difficulties." Emperor Vextar laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Technical difficulties? Have our great engineers forgotten how to maintain simple equipment? Sir, it's more than that. It's happening everywhere at once. Every world, every ship, The lights went out. The massive throne room, which had been brilliantly lit by the glow of 1,000 energy crystals, suddenly fell into darkness. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting strange red shadows across the Emperor's shocked face. "What is happening?" the Emperor demanded. Before anyone could answer, a new voice filled the throne room. It was speaking Imperial Standard, but with an accent the Emperor had never heard before. "Emperor Vextar," the voice said calmly. "This is Captain Hyon of Earth Defense Force. We need to talk." The Emperor looked around frantically. There was no one there but his own guards and advisors. "Where are you? Show yourself." "I'm in orbit around your world," Captain Hyon replied, "along with your entire space fleet, which is currently unable to move, fire weapons, or even open airlock doors. Would you like to know how this is possible?" On his command screen, Captain Hyon watched as his ships materialized around Valdoria Prime and every other major world in the Empire. They had been traveling through dimensional space, invisible and undetectable until this moment. Now they appeared like ghosts becoming solid, surrounding planets and fleets that had thought they were safe. But the ships did not attack. They simply waited, dark and silent, while their message became clear. "We are here, we are everywhere, and we have been planning this for a very long time." On New Sol Colony, the Valdorian leader was receiving reports from across his fleet. Every ship was dead in space. Every weapon system was offline. Every communication array was either silent or broadcasting strange messages in human languages. "Sir," his communications officer said, his voice shaking, "I'm getting reports from every world in the Empire. The same thing is happening everywhere." The leader looked at Hana, still sitting in her energy cage. The little girl was no longer crying. She was watching him with dark eyes that seemed much older than her 12 years. "What have your people done?" he demanded. Hana tilted her head, considering the question seriously. "My teacher says that when you hurt someone, you should expect them to defend themselves." As if her words were a signal, things began happening across the galaxy. On Centauri Prime, Do-hyun activated the farming equipment he had sold to colonies throughout Valdorian space. Suddenly, irrigation systems became electromagnetic pulse generators. Grain storage facilities became signal jammers. Crop analysis computers began broadcasting human messages in every alien language. The message was simple: release the child. On the diplomatic ship near Vega, Nari triggered the devices she had been planting for 7 years. Across 12 star systems, the Empire's most secure facilities found that their computers were no longer under their control. Instead, they were displaying images of a 12-year-old girl in an energy cage, along with a countdown timer. In the Imperial Palace, Juhuan finished mopping his way to the main computer core. He plugged in a device no bigger than his thumb, and suddenly every screen in the palace showed the same thing: a message from Earth. "To every citizen of the Valdorian Empire," the message read, "your leaders have chosen to torture a human child for entertainment. In 6 minutes you will learn why this was a mistake." Emperor Vextar stared at the screen in disbelief. "How did they get into our systems? This is impossible." In her bunker in Busan, So-young smiled as she watched data flow across her screens. She now had control of every computer system in the Valdorian Empire. Ships couldn't move without her permission. Doors couldn't open. Life support systems ran only because she allowed them to. "Dr. Yunji," she reported cheerfully, "I own their entire civilization now. What would you like me to do with it?" Dr. Yunji looked at the timer. 0547, 0546, 0545. "Show them what we're capable of," she ordered. So Young's fingers danced across her keyboards. Across 847 worlds, streetlights began flashing in perfect synchronization. Every screen in the Empire showed the same image: Earth, blue and beautiful, with a simple message underneath: "We are humanity. We are your neighbors. We are also your nightmare." On New Sol Colony, the Valdorian leader watched in horror as his own equipment turned against him. The energy cage holding Hana flickered and sparked. His weapons powered down. Even his uniform's environmental system stopped working. "This is impossible," he whispered. Captain Hyon's voice filled the air again, but this time it was coming from the leader's own communication devices. "Commander," Captain Hyon said politely, "you have 4 minutes to release the child and order your forces to stand down. If you refuse, we will demonstrate why human beings should never be underestimated." "You're bluffing," the leader snarled. "You're a primitive species. You have 12 ships and no real military power." "You're right about one thing," Captain Hyon replied. "We are primitive. We haven't learned to conquer other species like civilized beings do. We've only learned to protect our children." High above New Sol Colony, the invisible fleet began to move. Not to attack, but to position themselves for something far more dramatic. Across the galaxy, every human agent who had been living quiet lives for decades began their final moves, not to destroy, but to disable. Not to kill, but to demonstrate the absolute futility of threatening humanity's children. In his mountain facility, Taijun prepared to activate weapons that would rewrite the galaxy's understanding of what humans could do when properly motivated. The timer showed 0322, 0321, 0320. Emperor Vextar sat in his darkened throne room, surrounded by useless technology and terrified advisors. finally beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. "Get me a communication line to the humans," he ordered. "Sir, our communications are down." "Then fix them." "Sir, we can't. They control everything now." The Emperor stared at his reflection in his dark throne room screen, seeing fear in his own eyes for the first time in centuries. On that screen, a new message appeared. 2 minutes remaining. Choose wisely. The Valdorian Empire, ruler of 847 worlds for 3,000 years, was about to learn what happened when you hurt a human child while her family was watching. The timer showed Aura 147 when Emperor Vextar finally understood what was happening. For 3,000 years, the Valdorian Empire had ruled through fear and overwhelming force. They had conquered worlds, enslaved species, and crushed any resistance with brutal efficiency. They had never encountered anything they couldn't defeat with superior technology and numbers. But humans were different. Humans had not tried to fight the Empire directly. Instead, they had done something far more dangerous. They had spent 40 years learning everything about their enemies, placing their people in every important position, gaining access to every critical system, and preparing for the day they might need to protect their children. Now that day had come. "Sir," his communications officer said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm receiving a message from the human fleet. They say they will speak only to you." Emperor Vextar looked at his darkened screens, his useless weapons, his helpless guards. "Put them through." Captain Hyon's image appeared on the main screen. He was a middle-aged human with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He looked like someone who might teach children or tend a garden, not someone who could bring an empire to its knees in minutes. "Emperor Vexitar," Captain Hyon said politely. "Thank you for taking my call." "What do you want?" the Emperor demanded. "I want you to understand something very important," Captain Hyon replied. "We are not conquerors. We are not interested in ruling your empire or taking your worlds. We are parents, and someone is hurting our child." As he spoke, the screens around the throne room began showing images from across the galaxy. Human agents, revealing themselves on every major world. Ships materializing around every important planet. Systems shutting down in perfect coordination. "You have been planning this," the Emperor said. "For 40 years, Captain Hyon confirmed. Ever since we learned that species like yours existed. We hoped we would never need to use these preparations, but we believed in being ready." On New Sol Colony, the Valdorian leader was receiving similar messages. His fleet was completely disabled, his weapons were offline, and his own soldiers were beginning to panic as their equipment stopped responding to commands. "Sir," one of his officers reported, "our ship's computers are displaying new orders in human language." The leader looked at the screen. The message was simple. "Release the child immediately, or face immediate consequences." He looked at Hana, still sitting in her flickering energy cage. The device was failing as Soyoung's virus spread through their systems. Soon it would shut down completely. "You planned all of this," he said to the little girl. Hana shook her head. "I'm 12. I just picked tomatoes." She paused, thinking. "But my daddy says humans take care of each other, even the ones we've never met." The leader's communicator crackled to life. It was Emperor Vextar's voice transmitted across the galaxy on frequencies that should have been secure. "All forces stand down immediately," the Emperor ordered. "Release the human child. Withdraw from the colony. Do it now." "Sir?" the leader said, confused. "Are we surrendering to 12 primitive ships?" "No," the Emperor replied, his voice heavy with defeat. "We are surrendering to 847 ships that we never saw coming, and to the species that put them there." The energy cage around Hana dissolved. She stood up slowly, her legs shaky after sitting for so long. One of the Valdorian soldiers, a young female who had been watching the broadcast with growing unease, stepped forward and offered Hana her hand. "I am sorry," the soldier said in careful human language. "This was wrong." Hana took her hand and smiled. "It's okay. My mommy says everyone makes mistakes." Across the galaxy, the surrender continued. On every world where Valdorian forces were stationed, the same orders came down. Stand down, release any human prisoners, and withdraw to designated neutral zones. But the humans were not finished. Dr. Yunji appeared on communication channels across the Empire, her image replacing normal broadcasts on every screen. "Citizens of the galaxy," she said, her voice calm but carrying the authority of someone who had just demonstrated humanity's hidden strength. "Today you witnessed what happens when any species threatens human children. We want you to understand that this response was not born from hatred or conquest but from love and protection." The screens showed images of Hana running to her parents, who had been freed from their own restraints. They showed human agents across the galaxy removing their disguises, revealing that the Empire's teachers, traders, janitors, and diplomats had been something else entirely. "We do not seek to rule you," Dr. Yunji continued. "We seek only to live in peace and safety. But understand this, we have shown you only a fraction of what we are capable of when our children are threatened. Remember this day, and choose your actions accordingly." Emperor Vextar appeared on the same broadcast, his image split with Dr. Yunji's. "The Valdorian Empire formally surrenders all claims to human space and human citizens," he announced. "We recognize Earth's sovereignty and agree to the terms that will be presented to us." Those terms, which became known as the 26-Minute Accord, were simple. All human colonies would be granted immediate independence. Any species wishing to trade with humanity would do so as equals, not as conquerors or rulers. Any species that harmed a human citizen would face the full response of Earth's hidden fleet. The galaxy would remember that humanity was not defenseless. They had simply been patient. Captain Hyon's ships began to fade back into dimensional space, becoming invisible again. But everyone knew they were still there, waiting and watching. On New Sol Colony, Hana stood in her family's garden picking tomatoes as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed. The colony was free, the Empire had withdrawn, and across the galaxy humans were emerging from their quiet lives to take their place as equals among the stars. Junho watched his daughter work, still amazed by what had happened. "Do you understand what occurred today?" he asked her. Hana considered this seriously. "The bad people tried to hurt me, but the good people stopped them." "Yes," Junho said, smiling. "That's exactly what happened." What Hana didn't know was that her 26 minutes of terror had revealed something the galaxy had never suspected, that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their ships, but their absolute refusal to abandon their children. Across Asaim, 847 worlds, the lesson had been learned and would not be forgotten. Humanity was no longer the galaxy's newest species. They were its most protective parents, and that made them the most dangerous enemies anyone could choose to make. The Valdorian Empire continued to exist, but it would never again be what it had been. They had learned that there were some species you simply did not threaten. And in a small garden on New Sol Colony, a 12-year-old girl named Hana continued picking tomatoes, humming the song her grandmother had taught her, while invisible. Ships watched over her from spaces between the stars. The galaxy had learned its lesson in exactly 26 minutes. It was a lesson they would never forget.